Ok.
Yep.
Hola, hola, amigos, muy buenos días. Gracias por estar con nosotros en su programa, Café con Leche, la voz de los latinos en América. Estamos transmitiendo desde hermosa 1470 AM, 96.9 FM y Café con Leche radio.com. Les habla Lilia Galindo y me acompaña el analista político y escritor en periódicos, los 70 periódicos de California, 2 veces a la semana aquí en el Antelope Valley. Pues, y es Thomas Elias. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Tom?
I'm good. And I think today maybe we can talk about gasoline price gouging because the evidence is now in. You know, I wrote 2 months ago that back in February, 3 months ago, really, that the gas price spike that brought the price per gallon of regular up to about $6 a gallon in California was pure gas gouging, price gouging. And I said that because the Russian oil that we're boycotting is so small, has been historically so small a component of California gasoline, that it's ridiculous to think that you could have a 1/3 rise in the price of gasoline just because we're boycotting that little bit of oil. We can get that oil other places easily enough. We can drill it ourselves here in America, even here in California. And people said, oh, no, the oil companies are honest people. They're just doing this because they need to. Well, the results are now in. And do you want to
translate? Okay. Bueno, dice, vamos a hablar del incremento al precio de la gasolina. Dice, hace 3 meses aproximadamente yo escribí que en los periódicos que el problema de la gasolina era un problema de las personas que vendían de la gasolina que estaban incrementando injustificadamente los precios de la gasolina. Aquí en California ha llegado hasta $6 el galón. Dice, y yo lo que decía es que la contribución del petróleo que Rusia traía era tan pequeña aquí en California que de ninguna manera podía influir en los precios de la gasolina como estaban. Así es que dice, nosotros podríamos traer esa gasolina de otros lados o incrementar aquí la extracción de petróleo y acabar con eso. Así es que dice, una tercera parte de esto, de los incrementos, se las achacaban al boicot y yo no creo que era así. Y dice, y ahora, and now you can continue, please.
Yeah, well, so the results are now in, but they're only partial results because the first quarter financial reports of the big oil companies really only cover the last half of they really only cover through March as far as the price increases go on gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
That's only a month and a half. It's only half of the quarter that they're talking about. And yet, the profits of Chevron Corporation in California are up by a factor of 5. They made 5 times as much money in California in the first quarter of this year as they did in 2020. It's the same with Marathon Oil. It's the same with Shell. The biggest refiners in California are all making record level profits, and they're making these profits at our expense. And they claim that we have an oil shortage. And if we have an oil shortage, it's their fault. Here's a figure that's kind of interesting. In February of 2020, oil fields in the United States generated 13 million barrels of crude oil every day. Last month, 2 years later, not last month, in February of this year, exactly 2 years later, they produced less than 11.9 million barrels a day. That's about 10% less oil coming out of U.S. oil fields, and there's no reason why that had to happen, except that the prices are being manipulated by the oil companies. Now, how do we know that the oil companies are making these kind of record profits? Well, you have to look at how they get their oil. A lot of it is futures contracts. In other words, they sign a contract in advance guaranteeing the price they're going to pay a year from now and 2 years from now and 3 years from now for the oil that they refine. And that doesn't change just because the price at the pump goes up. And that's why it's gouging.
Okay,
They're not paying more
well,
than they would have paid otherwise, but we are.
ok, bueno, estamos hablando, amigos, dice como la evidencia de que son las compañías gasolineras las que están abusando, dice, está en el resultado de la bolsa de valores, donde reportan, y dice, solamente se reporta hasta el primer trimestre, pero ya están reportando ganancias 5 veces más altas que lo que tuvieron en el 2020. Y esas son las compañías de gasolina, de petróleo, ¿no? Shell, entre otras, y todas ellas, dice, hacen que el precio se incremente, pero en realidad, dice, hay suficiente, dice, por ejemplo, se sustrajeron 13 millones de barriles en el año 2020 y ahora se ha disminuido a 11.9 billones de barriles. No, 13 billones antes y ahora 11.9. Y dice, y la diferencia no es decline. La diferencia no es significativa como para que los precios se hayan incrementado tanto. Lo que pasa es que se firman futuros donde se comprometen las compañías petroleras a que la gasolina valga tanto en tantos años, y eso es lo que hace que manipulen la oferta de la gasolina en el mercado. Okay, now you can continue, please.
Okay, so what can we do about this? Well, in the first place, very few of the oil companies right now break out their California profits from their worldwide profits. It used to be that Tesoro Oil did that, but Tesoro has been absorbed by Marathon Oil since then. About 3 years ago, they were taken over, and Marathon doesn't have the same practice. They don't break out their California results from their worldwide results. So we need to force them to do that. And there is a bill moving through the legislature right now that would require every California oil refiner to disclose their profit per gallon in the future, forever. And so whenever we'd have one of these gasoline price spikes like we're having right now, we would know exactly how much more an oil company was making per gallon than they made a year earlier or a month earlier or whatever, if this law becomes effective. And this bill passed out of the Senate, the State Senate Energy Committee earlier this week on a vote of 8-0. That means even the Republicans voted for it, and the chances are that remember, the Republicans buy the same gas that the Democrats do. So they're just as bad as anybody, or they should be. And because not all the Republicans are rich, in spite of what some Democrats like to think and like to tell us. There's plenty of Republicans that are middle class and even some that are poor. So we need to do something about it, and this bill is one way that would do it. It would hit at Chevron and Marathon and Phillips 66 and Valero and PBF Energy. Those are the 5 companies that refine 96% of the gasoline in California. And they sell it under various brands. They sell it as Shell, they sell it as Exxon, and so on.
Okay, let me translate that before you continue. Bueno, dice,
Sure.
el problema es que las compañías petroleras reportan, dice, no todas reportan como debería reportarse, e independientemente de las utilidades que obtienen en California, de las utilidades que obtienen en todo el mundo. Ahora, dice, hay varias compañías como Tesoro, Marathon, Orion, que se está pidiendo y se está proponiendo un proyecto de ley que ya pasó el comité de la gasolina con aprobación de tanto de demócratas como republicanos, para que las compañías, cuando hagan, en primer lugar, separen las ganancias que tienen de California y entonces tengan que reportar cada vez qué ganancia obtuvieron, qué margen de ganancia obtuvieron por cada galón y eso hacerlo todas las veces que reportan, de decir exactamente cuánto se está ganando por galón. Dice, esto nos daría pues muchísima claridad y tendrían que reportar entonces todas las compañías como Valero 66 y todas las que venden gasolina y están en el negocio de la refinería del petróleo para convertirla en gasolina. Who proposed that bill? It's really good. Do you know who?
Yes, that bill is proposed by Ben Allen, a state senator from Santa Monica, who's in his second term in the state senate right now. And I would guess that it's going to pass. And I would guess that even though the governor gets a lot of his campaign money from the oil companies, he'll sign it because it's such an obviously needed bill. And it's amazing that we haven't had a bill like that in the past, because this is not our first gasoline price fight. This happens regularly every 3 or 4 years. That the oil companies claim their refineries are down for maintenance. They claim there's a shortage of some kind. They do this every 2 years, and they jack up the prices. And here's the most important thing about when they jack up the prices: they never go back down as low as they were before. Now the price now is an average of about $5.80 per gallon. So when it drops, it's going to drop perhaps to about $4.90. And that will still be about 80 cents a gallon more than it was before on average. And that's just ridiculous. It just guarantees that these companies will continue making obscene profits into the future as far as we can see.
Bueno, le estaba yo preguntando quién es el que está proponiendo este proyecto de ley. Dice que es un senador de Santa Mónica, que es su segundo término. Dice, y que el problema es que las compañías refinadoras, dice, siempre están hablando de que no tienen suficiente, que está dando mantenimiento, y si cada 3 o 4 años incrementan el precio de la gasolina. Y lo curioso es que cuando vuelven al precio anterior, ya no lo vuelven a poner en el nivel en que estaba, sino mucho más bajo, mucho más alto de lo que estaba. Dice, por ejemplo, ahorita está a 5.80, va a quedar a 4.80, pero va a quedar arriba de lo que estaba anteriormente la gasolina. Tom, time is gone. Thank you so much for your participation. Very interesting.
All right, pleasure. We'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you, queridos amigos. Fue un verdadero placer estar con.
Bye. Okay, bye-bye.
Estar con ustedes. Les agradezco mucho que hayan estado esta mañana.